So my last video was basically talking about Limbo, yeah? And it was a bit of a low-hanging fruit since everyone and their mother have already talked about the level. So for this video I thought of doing something else. I'm gonna talk about a level that nobody knows anything about. By the way, thank you so much for 250 plushie sales. If you'd like to support the channel, you can go ahead and buy one right now in the description. So, believe it or not, Collab level initially started as a joke. Because I was browsing YouTube one time and I saw a level called Too Kid Friendly with capitalized D, I, and E letters to spell death. So I was just looking at the comments and I saw a bunch of children in the comments claiming that this may be the scariest thing that they have ever seen in their entire life. And I was like, what? No, that's just not true. And I just remembered Peaceful and the way it just had the same reception. I really liked the idea of both levels, just basically normal levels that turned weird and creepy as time goes on. But none of these levels are actually truly terrifying. I mean, for the time when Peaceful came out, it was indeed eerie, but was it terrifying? That was the question that I had in mind, and I just wanted a level that was just straight up bullshit. You know, like a level that would just be as ruthless as possible. I didn't care about this level being unfair or cheap, but this level's sole purpose at first was just the most atrocious shit happening at the same time on the screen. And who did I decide to contact and pitch this idea to? I went to a potential convict, and he liked it. Too much. For the record, I think Peaceful and Too Kid Friendly are two levels that are beautifully done for what they're trying to achieve. With Collab level, it was just straight up bullshit, so don't take any comparison too seriously. I don't even consider Collab level an actual horror level, but more so an experiment. So the first thing that came in mind was, how should the twist happen? And I thought well about this, and I saw a pattern. With Peaceful, it always started with a very cute and simple style that was actually based on the music video for Peaceful itself. And with Too Kid Friendly, the same recipe occurred. So I thought, if I'm going to make a level that is supposed to catch people off guard, I don't need to anticipate it in any way. So I thought, if Collab level started with an obnoxiously cute style like other horror levels did, people are just gonna predict it before the level even airs. So the main direction for it was for it to start like any other level. That's why it was named Collab level. Actually, it was named level at first, but then eventually the final name was Collab level, just because it had more of a ring to it. The next step was picking a song. I didn't leave people completely blind as to what the level is gonna be about, because I chose a Steam Pianist song. And this was a direct reference to the original Wisteria level by Triaxis, which is one of the most revolutionary horror levels in the game. So using a song by the same artist gave the slightest bit of hint that this level will not be normal. Another thing was, if I used a recognizable song, people will predict what is going to happen in it. So I picked a more so unknown song by the artist. And let alone that, I didn't even pick the whole song. In the previews, Through the Looking Glass by Steam Pianist was used as a fake-out to make people think that this song will be the song used till the end of the level, when in fact we just fucked around with it. So this normal song was just chopped into pieces, and between these normal parts we put the scary sound effects. And I chose the most random and unexpected places to cut the song off. So while editing the song for the first time, I thought about it. What should the first ever sound effect be to catch people off guard? I read many books in psychology, and carefully analyzed black microwave ear rape. Other sound effects included were this. What about the visuals? Of course, some of you know about the Uncanny Valley, which is basically the place where normal and abnormal stuff meet, which essentially makes stuff really, really creepy. So what can be classified as an uncanny valley in the GD editor? So think of it that way. Uncanny means I just forgot that was a meme. Oh my. Something in that valley indicates the fear of the unknown, but how can we actually represent something that is related to the fear of the unknown in GD? Well, it all has to do with technicalities. You know, when you see an effect that is really impressive, you can sort of decipher how it was made, but you're still impressed by it. But what about hyper-realistic things that are straight up made in the game? Once you take a look at it, if you're not very good at textures or art creating in general in this editor, you will have trouble deciphering how this thing was actually made. And trust me, people have gotten really good at that. So if you don't necessarily know how something was actually constructed in the game, instead of being impressed by it, the viewer would actually get more nervous looking at it in the horror context, just trying to figure out how this specific section was made. This sudden change in style is valid in the Uncanny Valley as it shifts the level from regular design to hyper detail in the blink of a microwave. That's why I fixated most of the collab level budget on the first scare alone, because it was going to be the most impactful one. And I even went as far as to contact people who specialize in making end screens for levels, meaning they have quite the experience with textures and high detail objects. Through getting a couple of talented creators whose names are on screen right now, they started getting to work, and the first ever scare was going to be meat and gore and disgusting stuff, because why not? And since I've already dragged this on for too long, have a montage of all of the different versions of the first scare that did not make it into the final level. Onto the second scare. Same ideology was to cut off the song at random places, but instead of meat, bone, and eyes, I thought it'd be funny if it was a glitch effect, which was made by Maddie. There was a really funny old version of the scare that contained a smiley face, which looked stupid. But then a realization hit me. This level started in early March, and the whole point of this level was to troll as many people as possible. So what if I started a whole entire Twitter campaign releasing the level on April 1st, making people believe that something will happen, but I'm gonna advertise it as a completely normal level. And the conspiracy theorists have emerged, and people have went as far to assume that nothing will happen and that's the joke. And I was sitting like a goofy DreamWorks villain waiting for that fateful day. Moving on to scare number 3. I was browsing Twitter one day normally until I saw in the replies the most horrifying thing that I've ever seen in my life. The next logical step was basically putting her in the level. But how are we supposed to put an image to scare people in the level? There was many failed animation attempts for that jump scare, many of which are just really funny, like this one. Luckily, I ended up contacting a creator named Yu, who was responsible for animating this girl, which meant melting her face, yeah. The hanging corpses in the background, I'm not really proud of these. It was like a last-minute addition where we didn't really know what to put there after the third scare, but I personally am not really proud of it. It's extremely stereotypical. But that brings us to the meat and potatoes of this level, and my personal favorite part. This is the pillar section in Collab level. While watching this for the first time, the amount of stress that many people have endured during this section was just amazing. It was basically an auto section of an extremely long corridor, where two monsters lurking in the background waiting to strike. And these two creatures are actually the I'm Scared face from I'm Scared and No More Innocence. Believe it or not, this face, I didn't even know it was from a Sonic EXE game. I just saw this face on Twitter again, and I just decided to have it in the level because it just creeped me out. But that was definitely an interesting piece of information to learn after the level's release. Speaking of all of these characters, you may wonder why I haven't had original characters made for Collab level. Well, that's mainly because of the time limit. We wanted to release Collab level as fast as possible for April Fools, so we essentially used pop culture references to help build Collab level faster, which really helped. Actually, I don't think many people noticed this, but the sound that the monsters make when they pass in front of you in the pillar segment is actually taken from FNAF 2. After the monsters do their little dance, you're greeted with an ominous red glow that makes you think something bad will happen, but then nothing happens. This is psychological fear. The screen stays still for a while to make the viewer think that the level ended, but then it doesn't. So you wander off in the level's finale, strolling through, calmly, after all of the horrors that you have experienced. There is light at the end of the tunnel, just a few more structures left. And with you being on the final block, thinking that the level is finally over after seeing the end screen, you get blasted the fuck out of. Huge props to Typhoon Thunder, who is also a potential convict if you've seen any one of his levels. He made the fake end screen at the end of Collab level and traumatized thousands of people. While it's not a one-to-one replica, it did serve its purpose quite well. And speaking of traumatizing people, let's talk about the level's reception. After gaslighting the entirety of Twitter for about a month, 420 viewers showed up to the premiere, and people got scared. Even Trusta didn't like the level's scares, which really was sort of compliment, because the Collab level was the first level in the game that people genuinely complained about it being too scary. But that's the point of the level. The point of the level was to scare as many people as possible, and it did so. It was to take the piss out of all of the horror genres and cheap scares that are happening right now. And left me with a sort of bad taste in my mouth, because I wanted Collab level to be good. I wanted it to be effective as its own thing, and the Halloween update was started right after. I'm not gonna go into huge details, but essentially I got rid of almost all of the screamers and loud noises and replaced it with tension and psychological ambience. I'm really proud of the Halloween update, and if you haven't checked it out, you should see it now. Actually, there's a bit of an Easter egg. There are many Easter eggs, but I'm gonna say one right now. So during the first iteration of the level, if you have seen the level, you're gonna get it. But during the first iteration, the continuation of the first part, you have a clock. This clock, one spins normally and the other spins backwards. The clock that spins backwards stops at exactly 666 hours, minutes, and seconds. That is pretty funny because foreshadowing. I think Collab level as a concept is pretty childish, but that's part of the charm. I'm really proud of how this whole level turned out. And as the viewer right now, if you've been keeping in track with all of this, you might have had two questions. What the fuck did Devin do in the first level? And why did I update Collab level to its Halloween update right after it got rated? Well, basically the first one, Devin was supposed to be in Collab level, and he actually built a few segments which is now considered the pillar part, but unfortunately he got busy and had to drop out of the level. So I only kept his name in the credits as a sort of respect to him, because he was the main inspiration behind this project in the first place. As for the level's rate, you might have seen my reaction to having Collab level rated, which was the last possible thing that I could have had in my mind. I could have bet that a meteorite would fall on my head tomorrow than to have Collab level rated with Limbo. But it got rated, and I was scared, because was this a mistake? But apparently Rawtop really likes the level, and I think he might have rated the wrong version of Collab level, thinking it was the Halloween update. I know what you're thinking. This is absolutely insane. Well, I'll explain. Collab level, the Halloween update, was initially meant to be only watched. It was not playtested well, and it was released to the public on Halloween for the sole purpose of a showcase for people to watch it. It was not meant to be played, and I only didn't release it as an update and procrastinated on bug fixing the level because it was supposed to be a visual experience, because playing the level was a pain in the ass because it was more so of a movie, so I was basically demotivated to actually update the level. So when Limbo got rated, I think Rawtop might have thought that the version of Collab level that is on the servers right now was the Halloween update that had no jump scares, if you remember. So he was comfortable enough to even feature it. But then I got a DM from a mod saying that if you want to keep collab level on the servers rated, you have to update it. And that made me nervous because I was not about to let go of this golden opportunity, and we went to work. And Jeff here was the victim of many bug fixes in the level, and eventually the Halloween update got released. Personally, I think the gameplay in the Halloween update was not that great because, as I said again, it was supposed to be watched, but I'm fairly happy with the result, even though some of the gameplay reception is arguably and justifiably negative. Though there is no official confirmation that RobTop accidentally raided collab level, that was the most probable explanation for it, since the moderator that contacted me refused to elaborate on why I needed to do that. But I think it was safe to assume that was the case. So there you have it. That is collab level. Personally, I'm fond of levels that make you feel a certain emotion. That's why I'll take this opportunity to recommend some levels that are way better than collab level in my opinion in terms of what they're trying to deliver. One of these being Safe As, which is an actual horrifying experience because it tackles a real-life subject, which is dementia. And I really looked up to this level as a sort of separate entity than the usual screamers and cheap stuff. Another relatively unknown horror level that is pretty good is They Stalk by World, where you sit still alone in a bedroom in an auto section while monsters lurk in the darkness and you have to sit still wondering what will happen next. This is a perfect example of a horror level that uses sound design as a focal point, and if you want to play the level, you can go ahead and play it on the servers because if you watch any showcase, the bitrate will not allow it. Collab level gathered a sum of 3 million views from people all over the world, and hopefully this next April Fool's, I have something to show you. And don't worry, it will not be a horror level.